Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at NECA's Gargoyles Broadway Ultimate Action Figure. This is the next in the lineup of Gargoyles. I only have two left to review of the main group. I have Brooklyn and Lexington. I do have Brooklyn. Is it Brooklyn? Their urban name is Brooklyn, isn't it? Does it say back here? Doesn't say. Anyway, I have the red one already, and then yellow-green guy. He's next. Anyway, this guy's wings are too big for me to make him rotate. I'm just not going to bother, so we're going to just look at him right here briefly before we get into the review. Another really strong release in some ways. Some of the best features that we've seen, and then still some other issues that aren't as good as they could be. So there's going to be some good and some bad, and we're going to talk about all of that. So let's go ahead and get him off the stand and take a closer look. This guy stands with his legs bent like that, which is probably the way you want his legs to be bent. Roughly... we'll just call it 7 inches, and that's going to make him just about, say, 17.5 centimeters, give or take. I'm not going to get out all the other gargoyles until I have all of them. Then I'll do one video showing you all of them up against each other. They're just too damn big. Their wings take up too much space. It's too much of a hassle. All right, let's do a question of the day. Which gargoyle is your favorite? I've probably asked this before, but new viewers and whatnot, so you guys go ahead and answer. Let me know in the comment section below which one's your favorite, and if they haven't made it yet, no. And what character that they haven't made are you most looking forward to? That's a good one. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into the aesthetic. Overall, pretty good. I think the consistency in paint is better. Still slightly darker for the wings than it is for the body. The shading is a lot more consistent. However, the shading is not done properly. It's speckly. Hopefully you guys can see that on camera. It's a thing when you're airbrushing to make sure you're not shooting out speckly paint, and apparently they did not do that. So in this case, the paint is not feathered nicely. At a distance it won't matter, but up close it is very, very speckly, which does not look good, or at least as good as it should. And it is pretty much consistently that problem everywhere. Other places do have really good paint. If you look at his belt and loincloth, there's a nice wash going on, looks pretty good. The face paint is clean, no problems there. The wing shading looks very nice. I don't think that is as speckly. It might be, I can't quite tell. Maybe not. But yeah, so it still looks good overall, but the speckly airbrushing is not great. And why does he have a big splotch of shading on the tops of his hands? I don't know. But it does look generally good. I think the colors are good. Sculpt is pretty good. The way they did the belly is a little bit weird because his love handles are very pronounced with the shading. And then his belly doesn't actually have the roundness to it that I would like to see. These come way too far forward and are too defined. Looks a little bit strange, but obviously that's not a huge deal. But yeah, he does look generally pretty good. Some issues on the back of the wing there. Nothing major. But yeah, still the same general quality of paint other than that shading issue. So it looks good. No real complaints as far as the aesthetic goes. So I'm going to go just 8 out of 10, just because I think the shading is messed up, and I think they could redo the sculpting a little bit, and they still do their pecs in a little bit of a weird way. So yeah, not perfect, but pretty darn good looking. Pretty much what you would expect for more of the Gargoyles figures. Now, as far as accessories go, you do get the normal head that comes on them in the package, then you get the angry head. That looks pretty good. For the hands, you get the 2 open hands that come on them in the package, 2 fist hands, 1 gripping hand with a vertical hinge, thank you very much, and then 1 accessory holding hand. That's nice. You do get his weapons. One's an axe, one's, what is that called when is it a mace when it doesn't have a chain? Whatever, you get those. They're meant to actually be connected into 1 accessory, so you can do that, or you could use them separately, but he only has 1 gripping hand. And then you do get his popcorn, a drumstick, and whatever this green thing is. I do not know, I do not remember from the show or comic, so I don't know. But that's a good spread of accessories. I'll take it, so I'll go a 9 out of 10. I don't think a second gripping hand would have been out of the question, especially since his accessories do come apart to be 2 separate things. Another gripping hand would have been very, very nice. And also, can we just talk about the wings again? I'm going to keep doing it until we get the A-frame wings. Why? And I've made up that description of them, but that's what they look like. Why? Even for these wings, why are they so flat? Here, look, I'll show you. Example. For the open wings, oh, you can't really see it, but you can kind of get the idea on the packaging. They're not just flat, wide open. The only time they ever look as flat and wide open as this, it's when they're like gliding in a scene, like from the distance type of deal. Like, give us a little bit more something in the wings, like a little bit more of a curve would be better. A-frame wings would definitely be the best option by far. Most people and I think by most I mean like almost literally everyone who's collecting these is going to have them on a shelf, not hanging from the ceiling in this pose. So A-frame wings are necessary, not the cape wings, not the cloak wings, A-frame wings. That's going to look the best on the shelf. That's what they're almost always look like in the cartoon when they're not fighting or something. And even when they are fighting, if you give them a hinge like this, you can still use the A-frame wings better than you can these. So I'm still very irritated that we still only have these, and there's no good path for them to give us the wings we need, because how are they going to do that? Unless they're just going to keep cranking out new characters and give wings in all of them. I don't know. It's starting to look bleak in terms of those wings coming out, because we still haven't even seen those, even like shown for future release. So that's a bit of a bummer. But otherwise, good accessories. Still not a problem with that. So let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. This guy, definitely better engineered than the last one we looked at. Hudson had the problems with his torso where it was a weird shelving thing going on in his back. This guy doesn't have that. His head doesn't want to look up very high though, so that's kind of a problem. Like if you want to put him in a gliding pose, he has to be gliding above something rather than in front of, so really can't look up too far. It looks down very well though, so that is good. And then let's see, leaning side to side is nice. Rotation is of course no problem, so that's overall pretty good. The mouth does not articulate. If you want an open mouth, you need to have the angry head, which is not necessarily great because you do get the chicken wing or the drumstick. I guess you could say his mouth is closed because he's got food in his mouth, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, for the shoulders, that's about as high up as you're gonna go without heating anything. Like it's not stuck, it's a very tight joint, and the arms are sculpted a lot, so you're not gonna get it any higher. And by tight, I mean just plastic to plastic, not the joint itself. That moves fine. Full rotation, other than the way they have the pecs coming around down here, so be careful with that. No problems there though. Bicep swivel, that works fine. Double jointed elbow, that should be fine too. Yeah, really good range. Wrists have a swivel and a hinge. Could be a little bit tighter, but not bad. For the diaphragm joint, it's way better than Hudson's. It's just the way you would want it to be, other than they could have sculpted it to not have so much of a shelf. Like Hudson's had a shelf and like a lip on there, so this is just lacking roundness. It's so easy to do that. I don't know why they would have done that. Like you can just round that off. It's not going to look bad when it's down, and then it looks also good when it's forward, so that's a little bit irritating, but he has decent range forward and back, side to side rotation. It's all right, and then you do get rotation at the waist as well, so you shouldn't have too much trouble with his torso. Hips are the same types of hips we've seen before. Big old ball pegs with a socket and then a thigh swivel. Not as tight as they could be, but they're not sloppy, so that's all right. A little bit limited range due to the skirt, or the loincloth. A lot of meat in the cloth right here, right at the top of the thigh. So you're going to have somewhat limited range going forward. Going back, much, much better. So that's pretty good. Going out to the side, pretty much all the range you could want. Thigh swivel is good. No problems there. Single jointed knee. Get about 90 degrees out of that bend, and straightening it goes almost all the way, so that's all right. You do get rotation out of that if you want it. Same type of joint for the ankle. So that goes pretty far flat, pretty far back, and then also really far forward. Ankle rocker, toe hinge is the same, goes down, goes up, and you get... Does this one not rotate? The other one's rotated. Yeah, it rotates. Okay, so that's good. One thing I want to note, mine is messed up on this side. The socket for the peg in the foot isn't shaped right, so it doesn't go on all the way. I heated it, I took it off, I checked. It's actually just mis-sculpted or mis-molded in the foot. Let me know if you guys have a gap here also. It's still functional, so there's not really a problem, but if you have a gap here, I'm guessing it's because of the same reason that this is mis-molded. So let me know if you guys have that gap on that right foot for him. So that's all fine. The body works pretty darn well, no real issues. Tail is the same thing, it's a straight peg with a hinge. I don't love that the hinge is vertical, so that when you try to lean him on his tail, it wants to do that. So that's not really ideal. The wings, there are no cutouts in the torso. That's good. There's no problem like Goliath head, where if you want to rotate the wings, it bumps into the sculpt, so that's all right. So you get your rotation. Could be a little tighter. They're not floppy, but if they're not on one of the teeth, there's nothing holding them in place. So it definitely could be a tighter ratchet. There's nothing really, you can hear, there's not much holding them in place. And the left one's a little bit better than the right, but not by much. And then the hinge is still there too, and that's okay. So I still don't really get the purpose of these wings too much, because they're just too damn big and not really good for anything. but gliding, so not great, even though the articulation works well. So articulation wise, he's pretty good. No real issues, just some little things here and there. So I'll go 8 out of 10. It's pretty good, limited range in some places, but overall you should be okay for posing this guy. It really just comes down to, I think the biggest drawback for these figures, all of them, is the wings. I don't see how anybody can use these functionally unless they're just hanging them from the ceiling. They're too damn big. They're not good for posing. They're not good for neutral displaying. They're not good for anything other than hanging from the ceiling. So that is definitely still a frustration for me. Let me know how you guys feel about all of that. But now it's time for the final verdict. It's another great addition to the Gargoyles collection. It's not perfect. They still have room for improvement, but they are getting better. It's a shame Goliath came out first because he definitely needs to see some improvement, like for the wings, for instance, connecting to his body. But still, really strong series of figures, and NECA's not, they're only getting better, I think, so that's a good thing. I'm going to give this guy an overall rating of 8 out of 10. Definitely a few issues here and there, namely the wing problem, and okay, you can argue that it doesn't count, but I'm going to argue that it does, because displaying a figure is kind of important in terms of action figure collecting, so that's an issue. And then we do have some other things like the spray paint and the somewhat limited posability here and there. But yeah, it's not a perfect figure, but it is really good, and if you're into collecting this sort of thing, it's certainly worth picking up. An 8 out of 10 is a good score, it's just not perfect. It's an 8 out of 10 for NECA, by the way. An 8 out of 10 for Marvel Legends is nowhere near as good as an 8 out of 10 for a NECA Ultimate Action figure. So there you go, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. And if you haven't subscribed, you should. I have new videos almost every single day and thousands already on the channel. So make sure you come back for all of that. In the meantime, keep collecting.